God's gift. When we present the message of hope in Christ, we must make sure that all people understand that good works do not contribute in any way to their salvation experience. Here's Gene to explain this principle.
Now, the pronouns that Paul uses here, you, your, we, us, are pretty significant in understanding who Paul is talking to in this letter. Now, not always is it easy to discern, but in some cases it is. So here, when we go into chapter 2, verse 1, and you. Now, there's a plural pronoun which probably refers to the Gentile believers. Just keep that in mind because it'll be reinforced as we go along. And you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you previously walked according to this worldly age, according to the ruler of the atmospheric domain, which Paul, by the way, addresses in chapter 6, the principalities of this world and the evil. The spirit that now is working in the disobedient. And then he says, we too. Now who's he referring to? Probably to the Jews. We too. All previously lived among them in our fleshly desires. And if you read the book of Romans, it's very clear he's talking about Gentiles in Romans chapter 1. He gets into chapter 2 and 3, he's talking about Jews who are also guilty of sin. So he says, we too all previously lived among them in our fleshly desires, carrying out the inclinations of our flesh and our thoughts, even as Jews who have the law. And by nature, we were children under wrath, just like the Gentiles, as the others were also, as Gentiles. Now, but God, who's abundant in mercy because of his great love that he had for us, who? All of us. See, now the pronoun refers to both Jews and Gentiles, probably. Because of his great love that he had for us, all of us, made us alive with the Messiah, even though we were dead in trespasses and sins. In other words, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And then he says, by grace, you are saved. And he also raised us up. You Gentiles are saved by grace, but he also raised us up with him. We're saved by grace too, as Jews, and we're seated, he has seated us with him in the heavens, in the majesty, as it were, in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might display the immeasurable riches of his grace and his kindness to us in Christ Jesus. And then here's the most powerful statement probably in the whole letter and really in the New Testament. For by grace you are saved through faith. And there, the you may be zeroing in specifically on Gentile believers. For by grace you are saved through faith, and this not from yourselves, it is God's gift, not from works, so that no one can boast. For we, all of us, are his creation, created in Christ Jesus for good works. And now there's a very important key. When God chose us, he chose us to be what? Holy and blameless in his sight. So you see, he has chosen us and created us in Christ Jesus for good works. We're not saved by good works, but we're saved for good works, which God actually prepared ahead of time so that we should walk in them. And that word walk is a very important metaphorical word. In the Greek text, it's peripateo, and it's going to show up quite frequently throughout this letter. That we should walk in them, that is, in good works. So the question is, though we're saved by grace through faith, what part do good works have in our Christian experience? Well, in every way. We just read it in 2:10, that we're saved for good works. We're created in Christ Jesus for good works. And if we go back, as I just quoted, or if we go ahead, I should say, to 4:1, he says, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, urge you to what? Peripateo, walk, worthy of the calling you have received. So he's going to get specifically to these good works that we're supposed to be doing in view of our great calling in Christ, which he describes there in Ephesians chapter 1.